Hey guys, we're in Logic Pro X. My name is Andre Dyson with Studio 270 Digital Media Lab, and right now we're going to do a quick run through on mixing in Logic Pro X. Again, this is a tutorial on how to mix and also applying some mastering effects within the software Logic Pro X. But some of these principles are pretty much universal with taste and with preference of plugin usage. But other than that, we have a song here by Mellow Trip. It's called Waves. Mellow Trip is a friend of mine. He blessed us with the permission to use his song. And also, we have used this song to mix, but also this will be a release for him as well. But right now, let's just get right into mixing. And one important thing to know before you start mixing is always to grab the BPM or the beats per minute, which will be the tempo of the song. So right now, I have my settings of what I initially wanted. I will not be using auto-tune for this particular song, and I'm just going to get rid of that plugin so it doesn't bog the system down at all. And in a different tutorial, we can get into auto-tune and how to tune your songs. I'll create a separate tutorial for that as well. But right now, we're just going to mute all of the effects to show how they work, and I'll explain my process of what I use plugins. So, but the first step would be to get the BPM of the track. And right now on the instrumental track, I have the BPM. I'll show you how to get it. Whereas if you didn't have it on here, you will click on the empty space and go to, let's see, metering, and then the BPM counter in stereo. You open that up. That will be on the instrumental track in the mixer window. So as I play it, you want to play it right when the beat starts so it can count the actual beats. Counting the intro, it'd take a while to get the tempo. So let's just start right when the beat starts.
Moving at a total space, turn the stream into reality, I'll stay away. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken in the middle bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee.
So it's counted it. Looks like it's 88. I already had that set, but that's how you would find out what BPM you need. You only need about 10-15 seconds to figure that out. But since after we get the BPM, we don't need that anymore. I'll just get rid of it. That's what I had up here. We'll get into the main vocals. So I'll solo the main vocal track. Up here, you have your loop tool. If you don't see the loop tool, you can just select up here, and then I'll select the duration of the verse. This is actually the first verse. And we'll play that back.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace to turn the stream.
Now you see this playing on this track, and there's no effects on it. I have all the effects off, but you do see a bus track. So the idea of using the bus is very important for saving CPU and saving how hard your computer has to work, as opposed to having all of these plugins on each of the individual tracks, which forces the computer to work harder. You only want to use the bus to export, or not export, but send that signal from that track to the bus track and allow it to be affected by all of those plugins instead of putting all these plugins on each individual track. So that's a very important thing to save your CPU. So right now I have a bus track selected, and I send it to aux 1, and then that's where the bus comes through, the bus track comes through, and then it goes to stereo out to the master track. So this is aux 1, bus 1. And you can create different buses. So like, say if I wanted, this is the main verse, but say I wanted the doubles to be sent to a different bus with different effects on that bus. And that would only be the real reason why I want it to be sent to a different bus channel. I could do bus 2, and then it would create a bus 2 with different effects or similar effects with one different change. So that's how you would create another bus track. We won't do that for right now. We'll just delete that. see, hopefully we get it. There we go. We'll delete this track. Delete that second bus track. We didn't need that. So right now we'll go over the verse.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace.
And the first thing I want to do on this track is just to EQ it to get the frequencies right. On the left side, of your EQ is the bass of your voice or bass of the track or whatever instrument you have on there. And then to the right is your high end, and in the middle is the mids. So you have low mids and then high mids and then high end frequencies. And the human voice will register as I click the analyzer.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. To turn the stream into reality, I've stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinach salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon.
As you can see, if I take away the bass,
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. To turn the stream into reality.
Sounds like a telephone. There's no bass if I take it all out, but I don't want that. I can peel back to see what frequencies I want to keep.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. To turn the stream into reality, I've stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinach salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar.
So I like that. I like that zone of where before I put any other plugins, I just want to make sure it's EQ'd and it has, enough bass in the voice, but not too much bass where I'm getting background noise and all that. That's usually happens in the lower end.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace.
And that's with just EQ. And what I'll do is usually sometimes when you import the beat will be at 0 dB, which will be probably registered with no effects on. Too loud, probably louder than your main vocals. So you want to bring that down some.
Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinach salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon.
Now you don't want it to turn it all the way down, but you will end up raising it up once you add effects. But you want the voice to be loud enough. So now that I have the EQ kind of set to where I want it, it's sending through bus 1, and I want to ignite this bus channel. I want to start to ignite that bus channel. So what we'll do is, let's see. Yeah, what we'll do is start with the gain. The idea of my bus channel, and I kind of keep it within the same logic of a mixer. And usually on the mixer, you have the gain function that is the first setting in the chain of command within that track or channel. And then you have the dynamics section, which could be any of these. And in Logic, they have those organized when you go to the plugin section. These are the categories of plugins. So in the dynamic section, you have the compressor, de-esser. And what I do is I want to boost the gain, the level, because I'm competing with the beat. So I want to boost that gain real quick.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I've stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinach salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time in the studio that I'm on. Working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this.
Now this track is in mono, so I guess it really doesn't matter about the balance of it left or right. But we're just going to boost the gain a little bit.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I've stayed awake.
And now you hear the S's and the T's. That is the de-essing that needs to take place. The de-esser is to take away the S and the T sound.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I've stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins.
Now you see the frequency right here is about 6,694 hertz. That's where I had it registered before. we'll go into this and see what exact frequencies are happening and where the S's and the T's are.
Steady wins the races. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water. Word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue. Yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds.
So 6950 is where I have this part of the frequency at. We'll match it with that de-esser 6950. Oh, 6950. Let's do that. Hold on, 6950. There we go. As you can see, it doesn't seem like it's very accurate. Let's go as close as possible, 6945.
Steady wins the races. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water. Word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue. Yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it. Living life is such a fight, but man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job and help me pay for the time in the studio that I rock. Working 60-hour weeks,
so every time you see the S, it's reducing. The S is 20 dB, and then the threshold is every time it goes over 38 dB, it brings it down 20 dB.
Steady wins the races. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water. Word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon.
I like that. It's reducing the S's and the T's to a reasonable amount. We still need that high end, so you don't want to take all of the high end out, but the S's and the T's are being affected. They're dropping down every time he says S's and T's. So now we'll go and continue on to our dynamic section with the compressor limiter. We could do the one that they have. They have a compressor that looks like that, but instead we'll do a leveling compressor that is an aftermarket compressor. I usually get aftermarket compressors and other plugins from third-party sites. They usually have their own websites that have boutique companies that put out their own plugins, usually mimicked off of real hardware from studios. But Plugin Boutique is something that is good because it has a good example of different types of plugins that are out there for you to use. If you're not familiar with what each plugin does, I would get familiar with what's in your DAW system, whether it's Logic, Pro Tools, or Studio One. They usually come with basic plugins, not custom, but the word I'm looking for is not custom, but stock. That's the word, stock plugins. So get familiar with the stock plugins, and then you'll be able to kind of master it before you can add on different boutique plugins and pay more money for it. You want to try with what's free first before you pay any money. But always look online for different tutorials on specific plugins before you buy them. That's always the best thing to do. But right now I have the ADHD audio tool limiter compressor. We'll throw that on there. We'll see if to get it boosted up a little bit, compressed the vocals so it's more present above the beat.
Steady wins the races. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water. Word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue. Yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it. Living life is such a fight, but man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job and help me pay for the time in the studio that I rock. Working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the ground and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, sing like this. Steady wins the races. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace.
I feel like it's got more presence, leveling it out a little bit more. It's louder, it's more distinct from the beat. And then we can go to EQing one more time. The reason you might say, hey, we've already EQ'd over here before we got to these other plugins. But the point of me doubling down on the EQ is to still shape some of the frequencies. aside from what I initially did before I got to the dynamic section with the gain de-esser and the leveler slash compressor. We can shape it some more. So I'll play it without this second EQ, and then I'll add this second EQ and see how much more we can shape it.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn this dream into reality, I stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And then
I like that. Very subtle movements, not too much as before. Yeah, obviously in the other EQ before we got to the dynamic section, you see a little bit more exaggerated, taking out those low ends and some of the S's and the T's up top and some of the lower mids. But on the second EQ, it's going to be a little bit more subtle.
steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins.
So then what we'll do is add this console EQ. So this is the third EQ, but this is a console EQ that Logic has. So this is stock. It comes with Logic. If you go to EQ and then go to Vintage EQ Collection, and there's Vintage Console EQ, we throw it in stereo. And they comes with the pop vocal preset. That's what I have it to. And we'll activate it, and we'll take away some of the low gain, and we'll shape it some more with this, giving it this character, because this EQ, what makes it different than the other one, is based off of a console that has a certain character or electrical tone or color. So it's just to give it character. In your mix, you might say that you could do without this layer, but for me, I like to give my my vocals a layer or presence of character or color on top of what I've already EQ'd. So let's hear the difference.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the grind and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, sing like this. Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the grind and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, sing like this. Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon.
I like that color, I like that song. Again, it's all about shaping and giving it certain character on certain frequencies, accenting certain frequencies. I'm trying to keep away from the S's and the T's, so I don't want to do too much with that high end. I'm going to keep that at 0. It might even sound good without that activated. Let's hear it again. Let's do it without activated.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Turn the stream into reality, I stayed awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiate.
Kind of sounds good with it activated. So we'll move on from the EQ and that, giving it that color. And now we're going to do a Waves plugin, which is aftermarket. And this is more of the vocal in general, or master assistant is what they call it. Let's see, where they kind of give you destination will be streaming, medium, intensity. Next, let's see what they give us.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn this dream into reality, I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the ground and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, sing like this. Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn this dream into reality, I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the ground and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, sing like this. Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn this dream into reality, I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat.
I never worry about going back if I feel like some things need to be adjusted. Things aren't set in stone. You can, if you feel like some frequencies need to be readjusted after you put an effect in or plug it in, then do so. You know, things aren't set in stone. It's not set it and forget it. You go back in and adjust accordingly.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn this dream into reality, I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the ground and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, sing like this. Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn this dream into reality, I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon.
Before I add that ozone, I'm gonna add in the reverb, and I'm gonna come back to that because I like it without it as well. But we'll see how it works towards the end after I throw the mastering track on. So right now we're gonna open up the Chris Lord Algae effects, and there's a lot of different effects in this, and this is their aftermarket. He's his own engineer who has his own line of plugins and many that you could look up. These are the after effects that he puts in. I'm not going to use this for anything except the reverb. Right now I have this setting on room. A hall is going to obviously be bigger. There's a room size, there's a hall size, and there's a canyon size. We're not going to need anything bigger than a room. We don't need much reverb, but we're going to turn it all the way down, and then we're going to adjust until it's loud enough, and then bring it down a little bit. So let's hear these vocals.
Steady wins the race, and see I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn this dream into reality, I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it, living life is such a fight. But man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock.
That's perfect enough. It's present. You don't need too much. You see, I boosted it up, then turn it back down until it's mixed properly. That's the art of mixing. Is you don't want to do too much. Bring it back to where it's palatable. You hear it, but it's not overpowering no matter what it is. So then now that we have the bus channel kind of figured out, I'm saving that ozone for after I affect this master fader. So we'll come back to that. But right now, I'll have the factory preset of the hip hop master track. This will bring everything out in the mix. It'll really, this is the part that, if you have everything mixed, I'm going to condense this a little bit. So if you have everything mixed, all your other tracks are how you want them, which how I'm going to do this is everything is pretty uniform except for the doubles on each of these layers. So there's a double hook and then the hook ad-lib layer. That will be the only difference. It'll all sound the same except for the spread, stereo spread component that when usually my theory is behind layers, I'll have the layers separate in the spread so they're not overlapping or phasing too much because they're identical. And then you hear the nuance and it sounds like a fuller mix with those in the stereo spread. So everything's going to be the same except for those layers with that spread. So what I'll do is I have this setting right here. I'm gonna only thing I'm gonna do with the main tracks are the EQ, and now copy paste accordingly to all of the other tracks, and I'll keep the same with those, but create the spread. And that is under imaging, stereo spread. There you go. And then this is already set at default. Yeah, I'll just keep it on default. That's the only difference. Stereo spread. There you go. Okay. So now I'm gonna add the master track.
Steady wins the race. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace.
I'm gonna affect all of these.
Steady wins the race. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake.
So it definitely made it louder. I'll keep it at 0 for right now. We're not gonna boost it too much.
Steady wins the race. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace.
So the main component to this channel, the mixer channel, is the multiband compressor. So the multiband compressor works just like a compressor, but you can focus in on different frequencies. So each one of these are compressors on a certain bandwidth of frequency. So from 20 hertz to about, 100, does it say it? 140. Yeah, so from 140 to 490, from 490 to 3500 hertz, you have these different bandwidths. And from 3500 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So let's see how we can change the individual using this final hip hop compressor setting. Let's see if we can change those frequency compressors.
Steady wins the race. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it. Living life is such a fight, but man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the grind and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, say like this. Steady wins the race. See, I'm moving at a tortoise pace. Just turn the stream into reality. I'll stay awake. Eating better, drinking water, word to Mr. Jenkins. Spinning salad with some chicken and a bit of bacon. Sugar on my tongue, yippee yippee yum. Putting insufficient work to raise them insufficient funds. Radiating like the sun as I was told to be a light. Try my hardest not to snuff it. Living life is such a fight, but man, the homie told me quit complaining about the job to help me pay for the time. And in the studio that I rock, working 60-hour weeks so I can eat and survive. Overtime in the afternoon, so in the evening I'm tired, but it's fine. Mama told me that every day's like this, but I'm knowing this ain't the end, it won't remain like this. Step in line and get the grind and build a name like this. And if you need to be reminded, baby, say like this. Keep the faith and keep your head held high. It's a way for you, a way for you. Take a step and baby, take your time. Well, it's made for you, it's made for you. Take a breath and go and catch that tide. It's a way for you, a way for you. vibes, running high for cover. This up and comer is something else. Run and tell your people reciprocal love is love itself. Home base is the watch, looking through old tapes. I think about the past and compare and contrast old ways. I've come to learn it doesn't matter what you do. Somebody's always gonna have a problem with you, and that's the truth. See, perfection's unattainable, the wrong is inescapable. I can't be cool with everybody, I thought I was able to. I'm introverted naturally with extroverted qualities, accommodating those around me, hoping that they rock with me. Look, little distractions coming off forms and fashions. I stay up, I focus on desire and passion, trying to make a tape I'm loving from the start to the finish. In the ending, I'm indifferent to a critic's opinion. Keep the faith and keep your head held high. It's a way for you, a way for you. Take a step and baby, take your time. Well, it's made for you, it's made for you. Take a breath and go and catch that tide. It's a way for you, a way for you. I said, take a breath and go and catch that tide. It's a way for you, a way for you. If you loved your life, you wouldn't criticize mine, even minimize mine with your many size mind. You offended by a fine. I just wish you think bigger, cause you're never gonna slow the grind for me. I think quicker. If you loved your life, you wouldn't criticize mine, even minimize mine with your many size mind. You offended by a fine. I just wish you think bigger, cause you're never gonna slow the grind for me. I think quicker. Keep the faith and keep your head held high. It's a way for you, a way for you. Take a step and baby, take your time. Well, it's made for you, it's made for you. Take a breath and go and catch that tide. It's a way for you, a way for you. I said, take a breath and go and catch that tide. It's a way for you, a way for you.
So, sounds good.